Welcome to the Skin Diary, Skin Aging Unlocked podcast with me, Fiona Clark, founder of the Menopause Research and Education Fund and journalist with a special interest in skincare, and my co-host, the wonderful Clare Kiely, who is a co-founder of the Skin Diary and is also a consultant dermatologist with an interest in skin cancer and also has a master's degree in skin aging and aesthetic medicine. And today we are talking to the wonderful, I'm going to mess this up, I know, Thivi Maruthappu. There you go. I did that pretty well, actually,
Perfect.
I think. We're almost perfect. Who is the author of this wonderful looking book here, Skin Food, 4-Step Solution to Happy and Healthy Skin. And you are also a consultant dermatologist. You're also the UK's first dual qualified nutritionist and consultant dermatologist. And a researcher as well, doing quite significant work on psoriasis and other skin diseases, I believe.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Yeah. So what brought you into dermatology and why did you want to mix food and dermatology together?
So I first went into dermatology because I actually had a skin condition. I had quite a severe sun sensitivity, and I went to see a very famous professor who's now long retired, and it was just such an amazing experience. I thought, oh my goodness, this affected me so much, and you've just sorted it out. I mean, I've been struggling with this for ages. I want to do this for everyone. So that's how that sort of piqued my interest. And then that interest really grew. And so I did my dermatology training in London. And, you know, when you become a consultant, you kind of have to be able to answer the questions. You know, when you're a registrar, you can be like, oh, what shall I say? Or I'm not really sure. Let me go and ask the consultant. As a consultant, you have to deliver the answers. And people kept asking me about diet. You know, They could come in with acne or rosacea or psoriasis and they'd say, you know, shall I cut out gluten? And I would think, well, I'm able to answer all these questions you have about your skincare, about your medication, but you're asking me about gluten and I should really be able to give an answer to that. I mean, that's pretty straightforward, really. So I went on a sort of deep dive into that research and it just grew and grew and grew. And it's just been a really fascinating area to watch it grow as well.
What in particular, when you say that, because today we have this sort of world of influencers where it just is out of control about diet and what you should and what you shouldn't be eating. In terms of skin diseases, how important is diet in what you eat?
So it's one step. So it's one part. So I always talk about 4 steps. And with any skin condition, whatever you're dealing with, whatever your skin concern is, it's going to be multifactorial. You're a little bit prone to getting that. But then there's lots of other factors that play a role. It could be your skincare routine. It could be some stress in your life. And it could be things that you're eating that maybe aren't helping your skin. So nutrition is one of the important parts of looking after your skin. So it makes sense that it would be part of an anti-inflammatory approach to managing skin conditions. It's not the cure, and that's really important. I don't think you're going to find the cure to eczema by excluding one food, which people often want to find. I think it's much more a holistic approach.
And this is something that you see virtually every day as well in your work, the skin diseases and people asking about these kinds of things. How do you look at it?
Yes, I mean, it's a very, as Thivi said, it's very multifactorial skin disease. So, people often want that one answer of one thing that we can say, just cut this out of your diet and your acne is cured, but that's not the way it works. Stress has an impact, genetics has an impact, and of course, diet and living a healthy lifestyle has an impact. But sometimes there's just things that you can't achieve with just managing lifestyle factors and that just need some medical intervention as well. And that's where we come in.
Exactly, yeah.
When somebody like me walks through the door, though, can you look at me and think, there's something missing in her diet? What does your skin say about your general health?
Well, I mean, Thivi can answer this probably better than me, but I think in the modern society, it's quite rare to have nutritional deficiencies, things like, if you had a vitamin C deficiency and had scurvy, you would have bruising, that kind of thing. Unless you have some form of malabsorption or, alcoholism or anorexia or something that's causing you to be nutrient deficient, it wouldn't really be so obvious. I don't know, Thivi, is there other things that are subtle that you can kind of pick up from people's skin and hair that will point you in the direction of a nutrient deficiency?
Well, I think, we do need a balanced diet for normal skin function. And we know from the deficiencies that you've mentioned that when we're lacking things like vitamin C, certain B vitamins, we will see that in our skin and hair. But in today's society, that's quite rare, as Claire said. Saying that, though, there are some important micronutrients that are visible in the skin when you're lacking them. The most common one in women, whether that's perimenopause or when you're having really heavy periods, is iron. And, we see changes in hair, we see dry, itchy skin. So I think there's a lot of women really struggling with symptoms of low iron levels. And that's really easy to remedy with a blood test and supplementation and some dietary modification. So I think that's a big one. Mm-hmm. And I also think if you exclude all fats from your diet, that can manifest in the skin. So if you're removing essential fatty acids from your diet, that those sort of low-fat diets from yesteryear, that can end up leaving your skin quite dry and your skin barrier not working as well as it should do. So I would say those are the two key ones. Yeah.
I remember you at one of our dermatology conferences talking about the vegan diet and people who are very strict vegans.
Yes.
Sometimes can have a deficiency of certain amino acids. Yeah. And some of the dermatologists in the audience even said that they can recognise vegan patients when they come in because of their skin. Do you think that's something?
I do think that you have to be very mindful if you've got a vegan diet about making sure you get all your micronutrients, and it's difficult. It is hard, and I think you're better off seeing a dietitian if you want to do it properly and meet your protein intake. So we do see specific issues in vegans and sometimes vegetarians as well. So we can see sort of flares of eczema and dry skin because they're not eating oily fish, and it's really difficult to get omega-3 from nuts and seeds and flax. That is actually quite difficult. Low iron is also a problem in vegans and vegetarian. B12 you do need to supplement properly because you're not eating meat or eggs or other well-established sources. And there could be delayed skin healing as well because that protein consumption is a little bit harder to get. Yes. You don't have complete proteins that much in a vegan diet.
Yeah, I think the omega-3 isn't something that we think about much. I mean, the amino acids kind of come to mind, but the omega-3... So in non-animal sources, how would you get omega-3?
So flaxseed is chia seeds, but you have to eat a lot. And the conversion of the type of omega-3 in plant sources to the type that our body uses, that process is actually not that efficient. Whereas if you're getting it from oily fish, you're getting exactly the one your body needs. You just take, if that's your path and that's your lifestyle, you just take a vegan omega-3 supplement.
Yep.
It's derived from algae, really easy to take.
They're very effective.
Yes, they are. Yeah, because the algae is what the fish are eating to get the omega-3, so actually makes
straight
sense.
to the source.
Oh, makes
but
sense.
When you eat the salmon, when say for example eating the salmon, there's so many other benefits to it. I mean, it's got all the proteins, it's got astaxanthin, which is a potent antioxidant. There's a lot more in it than just the omega-3. But yeah.
What about low carb diets?
I'm not a fan. I don't like low carb diets. So typically I have someone who's getting ready for a wedding and really going low carb. They need to get into that dress, and then they come in and they've got this rash, keto rash. And keto rash I've seen several times, and it's when you drop your carbohydrates very strictly below 30 grams a day, and that's not even a banana, you can develop this very itchy, unpleasant rash on the body.
Which is a disaster if you have to get into your wedding dress.
Exactly. And then you're on antibiotics and topicals, and it takes a while to settle it down. Yeah.
I mean, you just don't realise how food really impacts on the skin all that much, do you? It really is an enormous thing.
And lots of people are really advocating these very low carbohydrate diets, but you're missing fruit and you're missing fibre, and both of those are so important for your gut health. And we know gut health is, epicenter of everything.
In terms of, you mentioned before a couple of things, sugar and acne. How much evidence do we have for that as whether or not people should or shouldn't cut it out of their diet?
So the data for sugar is not great. It's not that we have loads of really good quality trials like for retinol, for example, how effective that is for wrinkles and skin aging. But there is some data that points to people who have very high sugar intake are more likely to have more acne. So if you're eating lots of sweets, biscuits, cakes, things like that, then yes, you need to be careful. But that's really sensible dietary advice. It doesn't mean cutting out all sugar. I had a patient a couple of days ago who said, shall I cut out all fruit? Is that going to get rid of my acne? No. Fruit is not causing acne. I really do not believe that the blood sugar elevations that you get from eating grapes is going to be contributing to acne.
Yeah. Also with sugars, though, they do have a role in aging as well,
yeah,
and
absolutely right,
glycation end products. I've seen a lot of skincare now that is purporting to reverse that, but I don't think it's reversible.
It's not reversible, but also those topicals really have to get into the dermis. They really have to get to where the collagen is, and we know skincare is really difficult to get into the deeper layers of the skin.
Can you describe what that is? How sugar affects the molecules?
Yes,
it attaches to collagen and and elastin, is that it?
Exactly right. So, if we think of our layers of our skin, we've got the layer we can see, the epidermis. Below that is sort of the mattress. And I like to think of it as a duvet and a mattress. And if you've got a saggy mattress, then the duvet never looks quite as nice. So the dermis is your mattress, and it's full of these lovely coiled collagen elastin fibers that give it bounce and radiance, and that's really supporting the upper layer of the skin. And when we have high sugar diet and our blood sugar is elevated, that sugar can go and cause something called glycation, as you mentioned, for the collagen fibrils and elastin fibrils. They become stiff. They don't have that resilience and that bounce anymore, and that can lead to what people have termed sugar sag. But does that going to stop me eating ice cream when I fancy it? No. I mean, it's balance. You just don't want to be eating a lot of it every day.
This is where people get sort of mixed up then, isn't it? Saying, well, I can't have fruit because it's got sugar in it, even though it's fructose, not glucose. You need a certain amount of glucose for your brain to function. So you can't just cut everything out.
No, you need balance. That's just the most important message, is that it's never about going to any extremes, because whenever you go to an extreme and you're cutting something out, you may be missing a nutrient that might be important for you.
In terms of what you need to eat then, I know this is a question that you were going to ask, was, if I were going to have a perfect diet for my skin, what would it look like?
So I use the acronym GLOW, just because it's easy to remember. And I think of greens, and that means, the rainbow, fruits, vegetables, all of those brightly coloured things, because they're full of antioxidants in the skin. And that is so important for anti-aging. We know how important topical antioxidants are, like vitamin C, etc. They're really important in preventing free radical damage, but they're also important to get them through dietary sources, because they do enter the blood, and that reaches your skin. So that's the green, the green and all the colourful vegetables. And then we have lean protein. We need all those different proteins and the amino acid constituents that are within them to make all of the important proteins in the skin, collagen being an important one. And then we have O, which is oils and omega-3. We need those really healthy, good fats in our skin. They sort of moisturize the skin from within, and they're very anti-inflammatory. And finally, and this is something people like to cut out, is whole grains. So those brown rice and brown bread, sourdough bread, things like that are so important for your gut and feeding the gut microbiome as well. So if you think GLOW and you look on your plate, often it's not about removing things. It's about, well, maybe I can put some seeds on top of that. Maybe I need to add some whole grains to my meal today. So it's just about including that as a balanced plate.
Eating them is one thing. You're the expert in putting them on the skin.
Yes. Yeah.
So when you're picking out of those, which ones are you looking at?
I mean, pretty much all of them. I mean, with your skincare, it is basically replenishing lost nutrients, especially as you're getting older. Things like the antioxidants. We know that vitamin C and vitamin E live very superficially in the stratum corneum of your skin, and they're very, very potent antioxidants, but they actually deplete with environmental exposure, particularly UV exposure and aging. So vitamin E, actually, its depletion in the skin is one of the first markers of oxidative stress in the skin. So you will get that from your diet, but replenishing it by putting it on topically is also definitely beneficial. And we know that from studies that have been done in things like, especially vitamin C has been studied topically, because there's studies with vitamin C where topical vitamin C was put on live skin, and then a UV solar stimulator. So a solar stimulator is a light device that produces light in the same wavelengths as normal ambient light in the atmosphere. So the vitamin C treated skin was exposed to UV light, and there was less genetic DNA mutations, so CPD dimer mutations, in the vitamin C treated skin than in the non-vitamin C treated skin. It also had improvement of a thing called the minimal erythema dose, which is redness basically from UV exposure. That was in vitamin C. And then another thing that we use a lot in skincare, which is also important in your diet, is vitamin B3, which is niacinamide. And we know from a study in the BJD that topical niacinamide improves your immune system in your skin. So one of the things that UV does is reduce the immune function in your skin, which causes a myriad of problems. But actually topically applying niacinamide, same thing, UV solar stimulator, the areas with the niacinamide on it were less likely to be immunosuppressed. So, there are certain trials of topical antioxidants in particular that really, really do show an added benefit over what you're getting in your diet. But there's lots of other things. It's not just the antioxidants. We like to talk about antioxidants, but there are things like the plant polyphenols, which we were talking about earlier on, are actually packed with lots of antioxidants, and particularly, plant polyphenols are basically molecules in plants that have biological activity, and we like them because of their anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects. So plant polyphenols in skincare, antioxidants. Then we have things like peptides, which are basically amino acids. And other things then is just barrier repair in skincare. Thivi was just talking about omega-3 and lipids and that, but with barrier repair in skincare, applying things like topical ceramides or plant-based lipids that are identical to your skin can all help. So that was a very long-winded way of saying, yes, skincare. And I mean, that is the name of Thivi's book, is Skin Food. So, it's basically the same. It is nutrients and micronutrients that we are trying to replace and replenish to help our body perform the function that is meant to perform.
One interesting thing about that is how long, if I eat, or if I have a nice orange or a mandarin or whatever it is, and I've got all of that lovely vitamin C, how much do we know about how much of it does actually get to the skin? And also, because I love a double-barreled question, how long does the effect last? Do we have to keep... If I have a bowl of fruit for breakfast and then I don't have anything until 9 o'clock at night with nothing, has it waned off? Do I have to do this continuously through the day? How long does it last?
So exactly right. So it varies between fruits and vegetables, but as you say, you do need to top that up throughout the day. So levels do rise, and it depends on how much you've eaten, what you've eaten it with. It does reach the skin. So there have been studies that shows reduction in minimal erythema dose when you take certain supplements, for example, lycopene supplements. So it's so interesting how much overlap we have, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what's good for your skin, it makes total logical sense, all of these things that we share. But yes, you need to eat it throughout the day.
The Mediterranean diet, I think, is one of the reasons I think that lycopene was studied in the first place, because everything in the Mediterranean diet seems to be very beneficial for your health.
And just so people know, lycopene, you get a lot of that in tomatoes.
Lycopene is tomato skin particularly, so tomato paste. So obviously with the Mediterranean diet, you've got lots of, tomato-based sauces and pizza. Good reason to eat pizza, I guess. Chris Griffiths, who works with us in the Skin Diary, and Professor Mark Birchmate did some studies on lycopene in skin. And this was ingesting it. So they actually got, I think it was about 20 women to ingest lycopene for about a month, and then again did the UV solar stimulator and looked at the levels of inflammation and degradation of fibrin in their skin, and found that those who had taken the tomato paste had lower levels of skin inflammation and fibrin degradation from UV, which is really fascinating. The fact that something that you can ingest can have that big of an impact in that short of time period. I think it was that the study wasn't done over a very lengthy period of time. So yes, lycopene is an important micronutrient.
Don't you find that Chris has always done the study? Don't you find that? You'll find a study and be like, oh, this is really interesting. Oh, it's Chris's study. It doesn't matter what subject you're looking at. Psoriasis.
Yes. He's in the 0.1% of most cited dermatologists in the world. That was one of the facts we found out last week. So yeah, he's done the study on everything, yeah.
The interesting thing about that too is that, most of the times if I'm just going to really labour the point about the cooked tomato here, is that, most of the time we'll have them in a salad, and that's what most people were probably eating them raw. They're not very rarely here eating them cooked in any way, shape or form.
But they're actually cheaper, and there's a cost of living issue at the moment. So if people can get their antioxidants from tinned tomatoes, then great. And even when we do our research, we're looking at the Mediterranean diet all the time, and there's a validated questionnaire that looks at how closely your diet adheres to it. And one of the questions is how much cooked tomatoes that you eat. So that's a very important criteria in adhering to a Mediterranean diet.
Are there any other vegetables?
It's oily
similar?
fish as well. So there aren't other vegetables that they include, but it's oily fish, whole grains, a bit of red wine. That's in there as well.
Good.
Don't talk about that too much.
We'll get to alcohol later. Supplements, that's the other thing then when it comes to it. So if we're not having enough of these things during the day, and although you both sort of said that most people aren't supplement deficient, we are constantly told on social media that we must have an entire cupboard full of supplements, or we're not going to live until tomorrow, even possibly. Is there any truth in that, and are there some that people should have for their skin?
So I think really good skincare routine, sunscreen, diet. Those are the cornerstones of general good skin health. And obviously, if you've got skin condition, then we have medical treatment for that. Supplements have got a role, but you have to be very careful not to think if I have these supplements, I can eat what I want, or I can skip my skincare routine because I'm just going to take a few supplements. I'm going to take the skin supplement and that's going to fix everything. And that is a very common mistake. But you cannot out-supplement a bad diet, bad skincare habits, bad lifestyle habits. So they play a role, but you just have to be very mindful what they're there for. Things that I like, that I think are worth taking, I think vitamin D everyone should take, and actually because darker skin tones, people with skin conditions, I actually recommend 1,000 all year round, 1,000 international units. You can just take it all one day of the week if you want. You can just take your week's dose on a day because it's fat soluble, so that's quite a nice thing to do because no one remembers to take the vitamins every day. I think omega-3 is a good thing to take if you're not getting enough through your diet, another important one. And then probiotics, I think, are something to think about. If you're not really good at taking all those sort of gut healthy foods like kefir, kimchi, those sorts of things, it's worth thinking about a probiotic in terms of whatever skin condition you might be tackling. If you're, for example, having antibiotics for acne, other treatments like that, it's worth just thinking about probiotics. There is some data for them in with regards to specific skin conditions.
Interesting about that because we have what they call the gut-brain axis.
Yes.
So do we have a gut-skin axis as well?
Yes, we do.
So
yes.
What if I'm eating them? What difference does it make to my skin?
So, for example, if you have rosacea, you are much more likely to have dysbiosis. So this is imbalance between your gut microbiome, the good bacteria and the not so good bacteria. And we also see that for psoriasis, acne, eczema. We see different imbalances with each skin condition, but we see that. And so those bad bacteria are pro-inflammatory and the good ones are anti-inflammatory. And so the theory is that if you supplement with probiotics or improve your diet, you will reduce inflammation. And studies show that if you can improve your diet and take probiotic foods, you will have measurably lower levels of certain inflammatory cytokines, so these inflammation markers in the blood. So you can actually measure that going down, which is amazing.
Do you think, looking topically, that that's an area that will, we're starting to see it now, skincare products saying they've got probiotics and things in them. Is there any evidence for putting them on your face?
So
if I slap on my face with yogurt, will it help?
Prebiotics and probiotics, and I think it's a very complex area that we are just beginning to understand. We do often see with skin conditions imbalances in the skin microbiota, which are, things like we see seborrheic dermatitis, this periorificial dermatitis, all these things that are probably quite linked to balanced microbiome in the skin. Whether or not we can manage that with our diet or with topical skincare, I think remains to be seen, really. I think it's a good idea, and I think probably we'll have more information on it as the years go by and we have more research on it. I don't know if you've seen anything convincing on topical pre or probiotics.
I think eczema is really the area where people are studying it intensively. The problem is your microbiome changes from your eyelid to your cheek to your armpit. It's different everywhere. It just depends where you take the sample. So you really need trends. You need to look at large populations, and we don't really have that data yet. I think it's interesting. I think in rosacea particularly, I think it would be really interesting. I also not really quite sure how the probiotics survive all the preservatives that you need in skincare as well. That part of the mechanism I'm not entirely sure about yet.
We had Professor Andrew McBain, who's a microbiologist in Manchester, talk at one of our meetings recently, and he said that your microbiome is actually quite robust. It's more robust than we think in its natural state. And I've also heard people say that, the best way to improve your skin's microbiome is just to go outside into nature for a walk.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah, I think we're learning a lot.
Well, there you go. And I'd imagine another challenge would be, as you said, it's different from place to place.
Yes.
But if somebody comes out and says, this is the microbiome for your face, we've probably all got incredibly different ones as well. So that would be another challenge for you. It would be almost an individualised case.
Yes. So I think we'd have to wait for something very personalised to be around.
Yeah, because it's going to depend on the environment. I'm sure it depends on your hormones in your skin and, gender and so there's going to be so it's going to be very personalised.
Yeah.
But that is the way skincare is going.
Collagen, this is the other really big one. So if we're not getting enough protein in our diet, should we be looking at collagen supplements? What do you think?
So I actually think that the best way to look after your collagen is excellent sunscreen, a very good retinol. All of those things, the evidence for that is so much stronger than taking a collagen supplement. And probably it's a bit cheaper, don't you think?
Yes, they are expensive. I kind of flip-flop myself with the collagen supplements. I'll read something that says they're excellent and I'll actually start taking them and then I'll forget.
Yes, yeah.
Because I think, the things that we know that are really good, we will continue to do. But I would prefer to know actually what in my diet I could increase.
Yes.
As you said, the collagen supplements are expensive. And we all know that no matter how good the supplements are, it's much better to get whatever nutrients we need from our diet. So are there particularly collagen-rich foods that we can take?
Well, it's going to be sort of animal-based protein. It's going to be your most complete form for the amino acids that are contained within collagen. I mean, talking about the collagen supplements specifically, as Fiona asked me, I think there is a bit of data to it. I think they are interesting. I think we know that those collagen supplements, that they're not just giant strands of collagen. They've been clipped into tiny parts that our body does absorb. The data suggests they do actually reach the skin as well. How they then go on to stimulate collagen production in the skin, it's still a little bit of a mystery. But ultimately, peptides do stimulate the sort of factories in the skin that make collagen. So these collagen peptides, they could just be stimulating more collagen production in the skin. So the data from the studies that have been performed, just have to bear in mind those studies are funded by the companies that make the collagen, do show that there is increased skin hydration, nail growth, hair growth, things like that. So it is quite positive, even meta-analysis, and that looks at, several studies together to look at the quality of that data, do support that there is a beneficial role. But they don't agree on a dose. Yeah.
I don't understand, though. How did it boost hydration? I can understand it for the hairs. I can understand it for nails, but I just can't see how it could boost hydration. Is it because, a lot of them have got so many other things added in with them? They've got hyaluronic acid, they've got vitamin C, they've got all sorts of things. Could it be those, or have these studies just really looked at the collagen itself?
So that's the problem. So some of them looked at collagen alone and some of them looked at collagen plus, and that is a problem. But the fibroblasts also, they may be increasing how much hyaluronic acid is produced in the skin. That's another theory that there is about how collagen peptides taken orally work. So I think if you're curious, you can try it. I mean, they've got no side effects really. They're just expensive. So, and you have to be consistent. So take it and see if you notice an improvement. Look at your nails, look at your hair. Don't change your skincare routine. And then if you think they're helping, then keep going with them. But you do everything else first. There's no point not wearing your sunscreen or not using a really good retinol and expecting the collagen supplement to do all the legwork for you.
Yeah. You mentioned there that they're sort of chopped into very, very small pieces.
Yes.
So does that mean that you actually have to look then for a brand that does say that it has been hydrolyzed? And because otherwise, you'd almost have to have a leaky gut to have it get across.
To absorb, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So look for the hydrolyzed ones, and the smaller the little peptides are, the more easily that they're absorbed. So you can go for a meat-derived one, so they tend to be bovine, so from cows. Or you can go from a fish one, which is sort of, there's the remnants of the fish industry. So usually the scales are used to make it. So it's usually redundant tissue that's going to be thrown away. There are newer ones coming out that are from eggshells as well, which is quite interesting. But the difference is that the bovine ones have type 1 and 3 collagen. So that's good for your joints as well as your skin. Whereas the fish derives one, they primarily only going to be a benefit to the skin.
Interesting that it's fish skin, because I read that chicken skin is a good source of collagen, which is something I usually pass up on when I'm eating the chicken. I usually actually hand the chicken skin over to my husband because he loves it, so I'm going to stop doing that. The other awful things that I read contain lots of collagen are jellyfish. In some Asian countries, they eat jellyfish, so there you go. And bone broth.
Bone broth, yes. So bone broth, if you've got the time to do that. Oh my goodness, who's got the time? Also consistency, how much is in there? We don't really know. I mean, I've never measured the one I'm making for how much collagen it has. I normally make it if I've roasted a chicken and I've got some bones left over, I'll make a broth and we'll use it in a soup. I don't tend to make it to glug every day.
My mother, along with lots of other Irish mummies in the 80s, would always put the bones into the stew or the soup that she was making, and of course I'd come along and see it and want to gag and say, take that out. Little did I know that was actually very good.
It's good for you.
Good thing to do. So maybe maybe we should just go back to doing that. Do you ever do that? Put the bone into the stew? No,
but it would have been something my mother would have done as well. And then sort of, you look at these things boiling and think, my God, what did you kill?
Yeah, maybe not the jellyfish. I think maybe I'll start with the chicken skin, possibly some bone, but I'll leave the jellyfish.
You mentioned quality, though. I mean, that's the other thing too. How do you know what's actually in these things?
Yes, precisely. So you'd go for a reputable brand that's been tested. I think if you're having a collagen supplement, I wouldn't bother with the ones that come as drinks. They're so expensive and they don't offer any superiority over the ones that come as a tub of the powder.
Why not just have a protein powder?
You can, but
Is there any difference?
Yeah, so the protein powders will have all of your different amino acids, whereas the collagen supplement will have the 3 amino acids that are required just for collagen synthesis. So a collagen supplement is not a good protein powder because if you're trying to, you're exercising, trying to build muscle, it doesn't have all of the other amino acids.
The other things that are very important then are things like, the things that we do every day, tea and coffee, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
What sort of role do they play in our skin?
I love a cup of tea.
I love a cup of coffee.
I just love it. So if anyone says anything bad about it, I'm like, I don't want to see that data. But yeah, so it's about excess. So actually caffeine's a really important source of antioxidants for the skin. And actually for many people, that's going to be their main source of antioxidants, because we can't account for the diets of everyone. People, especially in today's day and age, with the cost of living as it is and the price of fresh fruits and vegetables, if people are getting their antioxidant from caffeine, actually that's a reasonable thing. But you don't want to go to excess. So excess caffeine consumption does seem to be associated with increased fine lines and wrinkles. Oh. So, you don't want more than like 4 or 6 coffees a day, really. Strong espressos. Yeah, you'd be like this as well.
Stick to 4.
Yeah.
What about tea then? Because I would probably drink 5 to 6 cups of tea a day.
Yeah, I think you're okay because tea has so much less caffeine in it. Yeah, and green tea, if you want to have green tea, swap one for a green tea now and again.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, green tea is great. Great in skincare as well. There's a lot of evidence that the EGCG in skincare, which is a very potent antioxidant, is very good for photoprotection and for aging. So yeah, a lot of research with green tea. So drink it and put it on your skin.
Yep.
So it doesn't have, do I really have to swap my black tea for green tea?
No, black
green
tea's
but it
still
does prefer
got lots of
black.
antioxidants in it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a
It's
really
still good.
boring builder's tea type person, I'm afraid.
I think the green tea it's basically from the same plant, and one of them is just put out to oxidize in the sun, and one of them isn't. So you're probably still getting some of the goodness. Yeah.
The other thing that's new as well that seems to be coming up is skincare with food in it.
Yes. Farm to face, they call it.
Oh, really?
Farm to face, yeah.
I have visions of falling in piles of dung, but that's just me.
Probiotic skincare.
Yes, totally. If I've got mushrooms, kale and broccoli in my skincare, is any of that going to go across the barrier and do anything at all?
Well,
or am I better eating it?
No, if they've extracted the active from it. So, we were talking earlier about vitamin C, green tea, so all of these amazing ingredients. You can concentrate it in skincare and it will be in a higher dose than what you would consume through your diet. So, we treat psoriasis all the time. We use a vitamin D cream to treat it. That vitamin D cream is a much higher dose than we could ever give someone orally, and it works much better on the skin than by mouth. So I think, yes, great, you need it in your diet, but if you're going to extract it and have it in a more potent, deliverable form on the skin, amazing. That's great.
We're back to the plant polyphenols
Yeah.
again.
Yes.
But does it
like
really
with
matter
the
where
bilberry.
it comes from? Is the vitamin C that I get from my orange any different from the vitamin C that I'm going to get from my lemon? Does it really matter? Is
no.
L-ascorbic acid not
the
L-ascorbic acid?
plants have lots of other compounds. So we're talking about not just the antioxidants. So there's lots of other nutrients and micronutrients and small kind of helper molecules. There's these things called entourage molecules that I've read about, basically that, and they all work together in the plant polyphenols, flavonoids, anthocyanins, all those kind of things to help each other in both your diet and in your skincare. So when you're talking about vitamin C, you're talking about L-ascorbic acid on its own. But an example of that working with something else is L-ascorbic acid works better when you put it together with vitamin E. They become a kind of a super antioxidant when you add them together. They kind of bolster each other along. But
does it matter if I got that from kale or broccoli or whichever thing? Does it? In the end, it's that you've extracted the active and you're putting it together with something that it works well with. But does it really matter what the origin of it is?
With the plant extract, you're not extracting. It's basically, so with, say, bilberry extract, it is bilberry extract. You're not extracting the individual micronutrients from it. You're getting the whole thing. So that is the perceived benefit.
That makes sense. That
Yeah.
makes perfect sense. Now I'm with you. Alcohol.
That's the one thing I'm a little bit strict about. I'm okay with most things. Like, have a bit of cake now and again, have some coffee, that's okay. Alcohol, actually, I think we do need to be careful about how much we drink. I think that, if you're drinking to excess, it doesn't matter what you eat in your diet, how good your skincare routine is, you will end up with fine lines and wrinkles that you don't really want. And, other long-term, now we know there's so many other long-term consequences because we've really been focusing on the skin, but, all of these things have an effect. Green tea on your brain health, and there are so many other knock-on effects, and alcohol is one I really recommend, especially if you have any type of skin condition. I really try and keep it to a minimum. Yeah.
Moderation. I read a study from Oxford that showed they actually looked at alcohol and its effect on telomere shortening, which is really interesting.
Things that sort of determine
They're like the caps
life,
at the end of your chromosomes, and your cells regenerate through life, and basically the telomeres shorten, and eventually they become so short that the chromosomes are exposed, and then they don't shorten anymore, and then your cell stops regenerating, basically. So it's a kind of a sign of aging in the cells. This group from Oxford basically looked at how much alcohol impacted that, and they showed that 6 units, which is I think 1 large glass of wine, and 29 units, which is I think 10 large glasses of wine. So no, 6 I think is 2 maybe, and 29 is 10. Does that make sense? Anyway, so basically they looked at a low alcohol in moderation and then alcohol in excess, and they found that people who drank in excess, with over 10 units a week, definitely had shorter telomeres, and they actually equated that to years of life. So it was about 2 or 3 less years of life compared to those who had alcohol in moderation. So I think the suggestion wasn't that we stop drinking altogether. It's just to think about that as one of the things that is going to lead to, there's all sorts of things, and they're like Alzheimer's being linked to excess alcohol, obviously aging. Most skin diseases that are inflammatory that we see can be flared with excess alcohol, because it is pro-inflammatory.
Yep.
But we can talk about the resveratrol in
Yes.
wine,
Well, that's right.
which is the good
Excellent.
story.
Yeah.
Are there some alcohol drinks that are better than others?
Yeah, so red wine would be the, if you were going to choose, if you're at the bar and you wanted to say, like, which is the one that's going to do the most for me, as per the Mediterranean diet questionnaire I mentioned earlier, it'll be red wine, like a very good red wine, because we know the resveratrol in those grapes is just a wonderful, powerful antioxidant. That doesn't mean, you can replace the blueberries with a bottle of wine. It doesn't work like that. But, a couple of glasses a week of very good red wine, I think actually that's a lovely thing to do.
I like the fact that you said it has to be very good red wine.
Yeah, it's really good. Actually, because the resveratrol is higher, the manufacturing process is, exactly.
Oh, really?
Yes,
I didn't know that.
yeah.
Important to know when you're
No more
in the
£7
wine
bottles.
shop. Yeah.
The other thing they often say actually to menopausal women is swap your wine for gin or for vodka because they think there's less of a histamine reaction.
No,
is there any logic to that?
Yes, that is true. So if, for example, red wine, great if you're otherwise well, you've got normal skin. If you've got eczema, if you've got rosacea, then yes, swapping those high histamine alcohols, so that's white wine, red wine, prosecco, beer, for clear liquors, that's gonna be better in terms of flushing symptoms, itching and burning symptoms that you can get, and the menopausal flushing symptoms as well.
Can I just go right back to the very, very beginning for a second? And you mentioned there with low iron and making skin itchy.
Yes.
What's the mechanism there? Why does that happen?
I don't know.
I
don't know. I mean, I think iron's very important for your skin barrier function as well. So it might be that your skin is getting a bit drier, but there's itching beyond your skin being dry. So if we see someone with itch, no rash, itch, normal looking skin, we're always digging in the bloods. We're always doing blood tests, and iron would be one of the ones we do. Yeah, I'm not sure of the mechanism for it though.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because that is a plaguing issue of many.
Yes, definitely in the kind of peri-postmenopausal era, and I think that probably has the ceramides in skin are impacted as well, as we know, and we've discussed putting on estrogen topically and whether that increases ceramides in the skin. I actually tried it as an experiment on myself, the topical estriol, because we were talking about it before. Obviously, Fiona is an expert in menopause.
Yes.
and she has an interest in this. And the estriol that you get in, so your vaginal estrogens, that is the same estriol that has now been studied in topical skincare. So there's a lot of companies in the States.
Huge in the States.
Really?
Yeah. But I mean, the evidence is actually quite good. I've done a really deep dive into the evidence on this, and the 0.3% estriol has been studied, applied topically, and there was very good dermatologists in the US who did a study, Zoe Dralos, and they showed improvement in lots of parameters, including skin barrier function and that. One of the caveats to that I think as dermatologists, so estriol is the estrogen that is in your skin during pregnancy. So you get that pregnancy
The glow, yes.
But some people in pregnancy get pigmentation or rosacea. So and I was one of those. I was one of those people that got rosacea through all of my 3 pregnancies. So in my trialing of the topical estriol, I mean, literally 2 days in, not having had rosacea since being pregnant. Yeah, it flared. I mean, I don't think that's a reason for. I will still plough on and test it some more, but I think that might be one of the caveats. If you've had cholasma, which is the mask of pregnancy, or a type of melasma that you get in pregnancy, or possibly rosacea in pregnancy, then topical estrogens may not be for you. But I think there is benefit to applying it in the eye area, which a lot of dermatologists in the US have been doing for quite a while. So yeah, maybe just some lower levels, or maybe just integrating it into a routine a few days a week rather than every day.
Yeah.
Watch this space.
Yes, it's an interesting one. Are there any particular foods, such as berries, that would be good for antioxidants?
Yes, well, blueberries were always kind of known to be the superfood. Even my 4-year-old comes home and tells me that, because that's what she's told in school. But bilberry is the berry that is in the new Skin Diary Night Repair Cream. And the reason for that is because it is known to be one of the highest sources of antioxidants. So anthocyanins are the chemicals in plants that give them their bright colours, but they're also known to be very high in antioxidants, anti-inflammatory and photoprotective. So I think there's a lot more work to be done on plant polyphenols in skincare, because things like how it's extracted, the concentrations, sometimes it's extracted with steam, sometimes it's just cold pressed, how it absorbs transdermally. It's all very interesting. I mean, the thing about the night repair therapy is that it has been studied in human skin. So they did a randomized controlled, placebo-controlled human study on volunteers on photo-age skin, and did skin biopsies looking at the regeneration of collagen and elastin, and compared the night repair therapy to tretinoin, which was brave.
Yes.
And the fibrillin fibres were repaired equally to the tretinoin, and there was actually a bit more collagen.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Can you use them together, do you think, Claire? That would be good, wouldn't
Together
it?
with,
Yes.
yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no reason not to, because so with the night repair therapy, there was no irritation. So anyone who has used it so far, there's never been any problems with irritation. So I think actually it can be used very nicely as an adjunct with your retinols. There is a little bit of a retinol ester in there, and they're kind of very stable retinols in there. Definitely, it's a really nice one to use with topical retinoids. Yeah.
Bilberries before Botox, Claire.
No, bilberries and Botox. Yes, they go well together. I like that.
Oh, God,
That's all we need. That's all we need. Yeah.
Very true.
Can we talk a bit about biohacking? Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
You go
yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
because
yeah.
it's just one of these terms that comes up a lot, and it's one of these. I think people kind of think, that there's some magic behind biohacking, when actually all it is really is intermittent fasting.
Yes.
Is one of them, or cold water showers or cold water immersion. Caffeine did actually pop up when I was looking up biohacking, but I mean, as particularly interested from the food point of view about intermittent fasting basically, and the benefits of that. And do you think it is something we should be trying to do?
Well, it's actually one of the things we're looking at in our research project that we're doing with Chris over at King's. We're looking at the role of intermittent fasting in skin conditions, namely psoriasis. But the data is very good for an anti-inflammatory role for intermittent fasting, as long as you don't make it too strict. So as long as you're not trying to eat in like a 6-hour window, which some of these biohacking sort of, and it's usually this sort of bro science that comes out of America. Oh, I eat in a 3-hour window or something mad like that. If you're sensible about it and you eat within 10 or 12 hours, then there are benefits. So your good gut bacteria thrive when you have a period of fasting like that. So I think it's definitely something to incorporate. It's anti-inflammatory. It helps with your gut health. But keep it sensible. Don't do the extreme.
Yeah. It's about autophagy as well, isn't it? And so when you fast for, I think it has to be like 12 hours maybe, you induce autophagy, which is basically like your body's natural way of recycling cells. So all of the kind of older waning cells, maybe those kind of senescent cells that are hanging around and not doing very many good things for your body are recycled, and that's autophagy. So basically, it's something that your body does itself naturally quite well in your younger years, but as you get older, it's a bit lacking. But I've tried intermittent fasting.
Yes, how'd you find it?
I think I can intermittent fast. I definitely can't do it all the time. I think I've found sometimes that if I do it for too long, I just would overeat then in the evenings. I think it's one of those things that maybe you just really need to listen to your body. I mean, there's definitely some mornings. And again, as women, we have cycles and, you really do need to listen to yourself. And, if you're tired, you don't want to be miserable for the day, so maybe just have your porridge in the morning.
You don't want to be hangry.
You don't want to be hangry. I do laugh when I think about it, though, because I think basically biohacking is intermittent fasting, cold water showers as well. I think it also is, goes along the lines of the autophagy thing, and the odd bit of caffeine. And I think basically red light.
They love their red light. Yes, their infrared saunas and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah. But I think in college, I did a lot of biohacking because, you're waking up with very little time in the morning, so you don't have time to eat your breakfast. You're running out of the house. You've probably forgot to put the heating on, so there's cold water. So you haven't eaten, and then you just drink coffee all the way till lunchtime to get you through. So you've biohacked your way through your student life. You should probably do it now quite a bit. So, yeah.
Probably counteracted the alcohol consumption.
And you probably had a hangover at the time.
It all levelled out in the end.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I don't know. I just kind of, for me, dinner is really important. I like to enjoy my evening. Yeah. I don't want to have that horrible pressure of, oh my God, it's past 7 p.m. And I haven't finished my meal.
Yes,
yeah. It depends on your life and what time you finish work, and, everyone's different. I mean, for doctors, I think it's quite difficult because if you don't have breakfast, sometimes you might not get lunch because, we generally tend to work through lunch a lot of the time. So, and then you don't want it to come to 5 and then you're just really exhausted. So you're having sugary treats just to keep yourself going. And especially if you're working in a hospital, especially around Christmas time, there's always lots of boxes
biscuits
of chocolates to tempt you. So it's tricky. I think we shouldn't put too much pressure on ourselves. But intermittent fasting, I think, is the way to go.
Yeah. And I think if you're exercising in the morning as well, like a lot of people, cycle to work or run to work, you can't be doing that and fasting. You're going to feel terrible.
But going back to the Mediterranean diet, and the whole thing of it focuses really around food and enjoyment and family.
Yes, it's an important part of it. Yeah.
And the blue zones and everything. They're sort of the antithesis of
and they live the longest
fasting.
of all of us. So we
and living a
can learn a
stress-free
lot.
life, socialising, all of those things, apart from just having a healthy diet and exercise, are also very important. I think actually having your glass of wine with food is better, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. It just slows down the absorption. And if you want to have something sweet, have it at the end of your meal, because again, that sort of buffers the effect on the blood sugar as well. So there's things that you can do to just enjoy everything.
Dark chocolate.
Oh yes, that's
guilt-free,
guilt-free
dark chocolate.
Yeah.
But not in bucket loads.
No, moderation. Yes, yeah, I think that's
moderation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Final take-home messages. There must be take-home messages that you have in this wonderful.
So take-home skincare is inside and out, isn't it? Yeah, skincare is inside and out. Look after your diet. Have a really good skincare routine. Use everything to your advantage. It's not that you have to do one or the other. It's all there for us to use. We know so much more about diet. We've got so much research about skincare. Use it all, and you'll look and feel your best for longer. That's what we all want, isn't it?
Brilliant.
Thivi,
thank you so very much. If people want to find the book, where do they find it?
So bookstores like Waterstones, or you can just pick it up on Amazon.
Wonderful. And if they want to find you, where do they find you?
I'm Dr. Thivi Maru on Instagram.
That's easier then. And Skin Diary, the Skin Diary, where are we finding
Skin
you, darling?
Diary is theskindiary.com, and Chapters Routine has all of the above, all of the wonderful nutrients and ingredients that we just discussed.
Brilliant. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.